Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and immediately command respect, while others, maybe even you, go unnoticed, ignored, or quietly dismissed? It's not because those people are smarter than you. It's not because they're luckier. It's because they've learned something you haven't yet mastered, how to make people value them without ever begging for attention. And here's the truth. You've been carrying that power all along. It's been hidden inside you, waiting for the moment you finally decide you're done being invisible. Think about how many times you've given your all to someone, only to feel like your effort barely mattered. You've shown up, supported, sacrificed, and yet you still felt taken for granted. The sting of being overlooked can cut deeper than words. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder if you'll ever be seen for who you really are. But here's where everything changes. What if I told you that from this moment forward, you never have to chase respect again? What if the same people who once dismissed you began leaning in, paying attention, even competing for your approval? This isn't about becoming arrogant. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about unlocking a part of yourself that's been buried under doubt, fear, and old habits of giving too much without demanding anything in return. You see, people treat you according to the standard you set. If your standard says, I will tolerate being overlooked, then overlooked is exactly what you will be. But if your standard says, I am valuable, I am rare, I will not beg for recognition, then others have no choice but to meet you at that level right now. You might feel like you've been living small, waiting for someone else to notice your greatness, but you can't wait anymore. Life is too short to sit in the shadows while others take the spotlight. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to be the person they can't ignore. And the journey begins here, with the decision to rise above the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover isn't just theory or empty motivation. These are powerful, time-tested strategies rooted in psychology and human behavior, principles that make people instinctively lean toward you, respect you, and even chase your presence. The people who once overlooked you will begin to wonder what changed. They'll sense your strength before you even speak. And deep down, they'll know they can't afford to lose you. Imagine a life where you no longer feel anxious about whether you're enough. Imagine walking into any space with the quiet certainty that you belong, not because you asked for permission, but because you command it naturally. That's the reward waiting for you if you stay through this journey. You'll walk away with more than motivation. You'll have a blueprint to shift how others see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. So let this be the moment you draw a line in the sand. The old version of you, the one who waited, hoped, and settled, is gone. From here on, you're stepping into your strength. You're stepping into the kind of presence that makes them stop, notice, and ultimately beg for the privilege of being in your life. And it all begins right now. If you've ever asked yourself why people fail to recognize your worth, the answer is simpler than you think. It isn't that they can't see your value. It's that you've been training them, often without realizing it, to see you as less than you are every time you overextended yourself just to be liked, every time you stayed silent when you should have spoken, every time you accepted crumbs when you deserved the feast. You told the world how to treat you, and the world listened. People value what is scarce, what is protected, what isn't easily obtained. When you make yourself endlessly available, when you say yes to everything, when you try to please at the cost of your own peace, you accidentally teach others that your time, your energy, your very presence can be taken for granted. It isn't because they are cruel. It's because human nature is wired to undervalue what costs nothing. Think of water in the ocean, endless everywhere, and taken for granted. But a single glass of water in the desert, that becomes priceless. The difference is not in the water, it's in the perception of rarity. Right now, you may feel the weight of that realization. You may remember the moments you felt invisible, the conversations where your words carried no weight, the relationships where your love was given freely yet met with indifference. That pain you feel is proof of one thing: you were meant for more. Because deep inside, you know your soul was not designed to live unnoticed. You were built with power, with strength, with a uniqueness that no one else can replicate. That ache you carry is the signal. It's your inner self screaming, this is not enough. I was not born to be overlooked. Here's where everything shifts. You must first recognize the hidden patterns that kept you small. You must see clearly the moments you surrendered your value by chasing approval. The truth may sting, but it is a gift. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you see the change, you can break them. And when you break them, you rise. Understand this, people will not automatically give you the respect you deserve. Respect is not handed out like charity. It is drawn out through presence, through behavior, through the way you carry yourself and the boundaries you enforce. You will either teach people to cherish you or to neglect you, and the difference lies in what you allow. So let this clarity ignite you. You do not need to chase anyone's approval anymore. You do not need to explain your worth to those who refuse to see it. You need only decide that your energy, your time, and your presence are no longer free giveaways. They are earned. They are valued. They are reserved for those who recognize what you bring. Picture the strength that rises in you when you stop trying to convince others of your importance and start embodying it. Imagine the power of walking away from the tables where your value isn't respected and sitting only at the ones where it is. That decision alone begins to shift the way the world responds to you. Suddenly, you are not overlooked. You are noticed. You are not ignored. You are sought after. And the same people who once dismissed you will feel the shift and wonder what changed. The truth is, nothing outside of you needs to change. It is you, your perception, your standard, your willingness to demand more from life. Once that shift happens, you stop waiting to be chosen because you realize you are the one who chooses. And when you finally embrace that truth, they have no choice but to value you. Respect begins with the way you see yourself because the world is always watching for clues. People mirror the energy you project. If you carry yourself as if your presence is optional, they will treat you like a choice. If you walk with the weight of your own worth, they will sense it before you ever open your mouth. Self-respect is not something you ask for. It is something you embody. And when you embody it, others have no choice but to respond. Think about how many times you've spoken softly of your goals, downplayed your talents, or brushed off your achievements so you wouldn't make anyone uncomfortable. That humility may have felt safe, but it robbed you of power. It told the world that even you weren't convinced of your greatness. And if you don't believe in your own worth, how can anyone else? Self-respect is the invisible currency that determines the way people value you. It is not arrogance, it is certainty. It is the quiet knowledge that you matter and the refusal to act in any way that suggests otherwise. Every moment you accept treatment beneath your value, you lower your price in the marketplace of life. But every time you hold yourself to a higher standard, whether that means walking away from disrespect, speaking your truth, or refusing to settle, you raise your value. And here is the key. Once your standard rises, others are forced to rise to meet it. They may resist at first, they may test you, but over time, they will recognize that you cannot be bent. And that recognition becomes respect. This is not about surface level confidence. It's about creating an unshakable inner foundation. That foundation is built through daily choices, choosing discipline over comfort, choosing growth over stagnation, choosing to treat yourself as someone who is worthy of the best. When you do this consistently, your self-respect becomes visible. It shows in your posture, in your voice, in your decisions. It becomes impossible for others to miss. And something powerful happens when you live this way. The people who once overlooked you begin to hesitate. They notice your silence carries weight. They feel the strength behind your words. They recognize that you are not desperate for attention because you are rooted in your own certainty. And suddenly your value increases in their eyes, not because they decided it should, but because you decided it must. You must understand this. People sense self-respect the way they sense confidence, authority, and power. It radiates without explanation. It is in the way you enter a room. It is in the way you hold your head high, even when no one applauds. It is in the way you choose peace over chaos, standards over desperation, dignity over approval. That energy draws people to you. It makes them question what they missed before. It makes them want to earn a place in your presence. So the shift begins now. Stop waiting for validation to build your confidence. Build your confidence and the validation will follow. Stop waiting for permission to respect yourself. Respect yourself and permission will never be needed again. You cannot control how others see you, but you can always control how you see yourself. And once you master that, everything changes. The world will reflect the worth you refuse to compromise. They will value you because you have finally decided to value yourself. There's a force more magnetic than words. more compelling than charm, and more influential than constant presence. And that force is mystery. When you stop revealing everything about yourself, when you stop offering every detail, every thought, every feeling, you create a space that draws people in. Curiosity is a powerful driver of desire. People are instinctively attracted to what they cannot fully understand, what they cannot immediately grasp, what they must work to earn. When you maintain an element of mystery, you are no longer ordinary. You are rare. You are sought after. Too often, people pour themselves into the lives of others, believing that giving everything will earn love, respect, or admiration. But abundance without boundaries becomes invisible. It loses impact. When everything is easy to access, nothing is valued. The human mind respects challenge. It values scarcity. It remembers what it must reach for. That is why those who are partially hidden, those who guard themselves with subtlety, suddenly command attention. They become irresistible without even trying. This is not manipulation. This is understanding the psychology of human attraction and influence. It is knowing that by holding back a little, by reserving your energy, your time, and your presence, you are automatically increasing your worth. When you are always available, your presence loses its power. When you are selective, when you allow people to experience your presence as a privilege, they feel it. They feel the pull. They feel that this is not something to be taken lightly, and that awareness changes everything. Think of your own life. Think of moments when someone seemed just out of reach, when they weren't always around, when their attention had to be earned. How did it feel? You noticed them. You thought about them. You respected them. That reaction is exactly what you want others to feel toward you. The difference is that now you are choosing to create that effect consciously. You are stepping into the rare space that only the most magnetic people occupy. Maintaining mystery requires discipline. It means resisting the urge to over-explain. It means not chasing validation, not offering yourself fully to those who fail to appreciate you. It means standing in your power, even when the world demands immediate access. Every pause, every moment of quiet confidence communicates a subtle but undeniable message. I am valuable. I am controlled. I am not to be rushed. And when you embody that, you shift the dynamics of every relationship, every interaction, every space you enter. Your presence becomes your signal. Your choices become your leverage. People respond not just to what you say, but to the energy you emit when you are whole, when you are reserved, when you are unapologetically yourself. They will start noticing the power in your absence, the weight of your attention, the value of your engagement. They will begin to chase the feeling that you offer, not because they are demanding it, but because they sense it is rare, it is precious, and it is theirs only if they rise to meet it. This is the strategy of influence, of magnetic presence. It is not about being elusive for the sake of ego. It is about cultivating the inner strength that naturally draws respect and desire. Every time you protect your energy, every time you reveal yourself intentionally, you are telling the world, I am valuable. And the world responds exactly as it should, by leaning in, by noticing, by finally understanding that what you offer cannot be taken for granted. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that define your value. Every time you allow someone to cross them without consequence, you are silently signaling that your worth is negotiable. And the world without guidance will test that boundary again and again. The people who truly respect you are not those who take what you give. They are those who recognize your limits, who honor your time, your energy, and your standards. Boundaries are the invisible measure of self-respect, and when enforced, they elevate how others see you. Saying no is not rejection. It is affirmation of your power. Each time you refuse to tolerate disrespect, each time you decline to participate in situations that diminish your energy, you are communicating a simple truth. You are not available for less than you deserve. This truth does not need explanation. It carries its own weight. When you enforce boundaries, you create a standard that others must meet, or they are naturally excluded. That standard, once established, is magnetic. People are drawn to those who value themselves because they instinctively seek the strength that mirrors what they lack in themselves. Every moment you bend to please, every time you compromise to avoid conflict, you diminish your presence. People do not value what is cheap, easy, or endless. They value what requires effort, what commands patience, what is protected. When you begin to protect your time, your attention, and your heart, You are no longer a passive participant in life. You are a gatekeeper. You decide who deserves your energy, who earns your respect, and who gets the privilege of being in your orbit. That decision alone shifts the way the world interacts with you. Boundaries also create anticipation. When people know your attention is limited, when they sense that your presence is not guaranteed, they begin to work for it. Human psychology is wired to chase what is not freely given. The harder it is to obtain, the more valuable it becomes. By holding your ground, by refusing to compromise on your standards, you are not pushing people away. You are elevating your position. You are setting the terms of engagement. And once those terms are clear, others respond naturally with respect, desire, and attention. This is not about being cold or distant. It is about being deliberate and intentional. It is about protecting the sacred space of your life and your energy. Every boundary you set reinforces your self-worth, and every boundary you honor communicates to others that you are a person of value, someone whose presence is to be cherished rather than taken for granted. The people who once ignored you, who overlooked your effort, who assumed your generosity would never run dry, begin to notice. They begin to question how they ever thought your value was negotiable. They start leaning in, drawn to the clarity and strength that comes from someone who refuses to settle. The quiet authority of boundaries is more persuasive than any argument. It commands attention without demanding it. Deciding where you end and others begin is not just a choice, it is an act of transformation. When you embrace this power, you stop waiting for permission and you stop pleading for recognition. You become someone who is not just noticed, but revered. You create an environment where respect is automatic, where attention is earned, and where the people who truly belong in your life are the ones willing to rise to the standard you have set. That is the power of boundaries, and once you claim it, everything else falls into alignment. Silence is more powerful than words. The way you hold yourself in moments of restraint communicates more than endless explanations ever could. When you stop reacting impulsively, when you stop over-explaining, when you resist the urge to justify yourself, you step into a force that commands attention naturally. People are drawn to those who do not need to prove themselves constantly, because that restraint signals confidence, strength, and control. The quieter you are in the face of chaos, the louder your presence becomes. Controlled silence is not emptiness, it is intentional energy. It is the ability to measure your response, to choose your actions, and to rise above the impulses that dilute your power. When others are frantic, emotional, or desperate for validation, your calm becomes magnetic. It is the signal that you are grounded, unshakable, and aware of your worth. People cannot ignore that energy. They may try to push, provoke, or manipulate, but the one who masters silence is untouchable. Every pause, every deliberate moment of quiet creates anticipation. Human psychology craves what is uncertain, what is held back, what is earned. When you resist the urge to fill every silence with words or explanations, you create a space that others are compelled to enter. They lean in, they wonder, they seek your attention, not because you demanded it, but because your self-restraint has made your presence desirable. You are no longer available at all times, and that scarcity transforms perception into value. Silence also builds authority. When you speak, your words carry weight. Every statement becomes deliberate, every declaration more meaningful, because people are conditioned to pay attention when you do not always give everything away. Your energy is no longer diluted by constant validation seeking. It is concentrated, precise, and undeniable. This is the power of restraint, and it is invisible yet undeniable. It is the quiet force that separates those who are followed from those who are ignored. Notice how your emotions often dictate your interactions. Reacting instantly, seeking approval, or explaining yourself endlessly is exhausting and diminishes influence. But when you step back, when you pause, when you choose silence over reaction, you shift control back to yourself. You stop being prey to the opinions of others, and you start setting the pace of your life. People sense that shift immediately. They sense the strength behind the calm, the stability behind the restraint, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. This is mastery over influence, mastery over perception, mastery over self. Those who understand the power of controlled silence do not chase respect, they command it. They do not beg for attention, they attract it. And the beauty of it is that this authority does not come from loudness or force. It comes from self-control, presence, and the refusal to compromise your inner power for anyone else. Imagine the strength you gain when you allow your presence, not your desperation, to speak for you. Imagine the respect that flows naturally to someone who does not need to explain, justify, or overextend to be valued. That is the magnetic force you are cultivating. That is the force that will make people lean in, pay attention, and ultimately beg for what you offer. Controlled silence is not absence. It is power. And when you claim it, everything in your life begins to align with the value you deserve. True power is born from the strength you cultivate within yourself. Confidence is not something that comes from external validation. It comes from consistent action, deliberate growth, and the unwavering belief that you are enough exactly as you are. When you invest in yourself, your mind, your body, your skills, your habits, you create an energy that cannot be ignored. People sense it instantly. They do not need to hear you claim your value. They feel it radiating from every choice, every movement, every decision. Building inner power begins with mastery over yourself. It means waking up every day and choosing discipline over comfort, purpose over distraction, growth over stagnation. It means pushing beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the limitations you once believed were fixed. Every time you conquer a small challenge, you expand your capacity. Every time you honor your commitments to yourself, you reinforce the fact that you are not someone who can be taken lightly. Inner strength is cumulative. It compounds silently, shaping not just who you are, but how the world perceives you. When you carry this power, others are unconsciously drawn to it. They are drawn to confidence because it signals capability, resilience, and independence. It tells them that you are not desperate, that your presence is earned, that your attention is not a given, that energy becomes magnetic. People begin to notice when you are not around. They respect what you stand for, even if they cannot articulate why. Your inner power becomes a force that changes the dynamics of every relationship, every space, every interaction. This strength is not about dominance or intimidation. It is about self-assuredness. It is about living in a state where your worth is clear to you and therefore clear to the world. When you stop relying on others to affirm you, you stop needing to chase approval, and the energy that was once spent seeking validation transforms into presence, focus, and influence. People are naturally drawn to those who are self-sufficient because they sense that presence is rare, stable, and valuable. Inner power also creates resilience. When you develop strength within, you stop being shaken by criticism, rejection, or indifference. You no longer bend to meet the expectations of others or overextend yourself to gain approval. Your foundation is solid. Your sense of value is anchored internally, and that stability makes you untouchable in ways that others cannot imitate. People respond to this energy, often without consciously realizing why. They respect you because you respect yourself. They are drawn to you because you are unwavering. Every choice to grow, every decision to strengthen your mind and body, every action that aligns with your true potential amplifies your value in ways that are invisible yet undeniable. The world responds to the energy you cultivate within before it notices anything you say or do externally. By becoming a person of substance, you make yourself rare, desired, and impossible to overlook. The people who once underestimated you, who took your presence for granted, begin to feel the shift. They begin to sense that you are no longer the same person who could be dismissed or ignored. You carry an energy that commands attention without asking for it. Your inner power becomes the anchor of your influence, the magnet that draws respect, admiration, and ultimately the longing of those who recognize your worth. When you invest in yourself this way, the world responds by aligning with the value you have chosen to embody. The energy you radiate is amplified when you surround yourself with people who reflect the same level of ambition, respect, and discernment that you demand from yourself. Social influence is real. The company you keep not only shapes your habits, but also signals to the world the type of person you are. When you intentionally align yourself with those who value themselves, who pursue growth, who demand excellence, your presence becomes amplified. You are no longer isolated in your power. You are part of a network that magnifies your influence, making you more magnetic, more desirable, and harder to ignore. Human beings are wired to respond to social proof. We are drawn to those whom others respect, admire, and seek out. When you cultivate a life where you are surrounded by high-value individuals, you automatically elevate how others perceive you. You become pre-selected in the eyes of the world. People notice not only what you do, but who you choose to stand beside. They recognize that your time is precious, that your attention is scarce, and that to be in your orbit is a privilege. That recognition alone increases your value in ways that words cannot. Expanding your circle does not mean abandoning your authenticity. It means surrounding yourself with those who challenge you, who inspire you, and who reflect the level of energy you are willing to operate at. Every connection you nurture with intention signals that you are intentional about your life, about your growth, and about the people you allow close to your energy. That intentionality is magnetic. It draws attention, respect, and admiration. It positions you as someone who cannot be taken for granted because you have clearly chosen to value yourself above all else. This is the strategy of social magnetism. The more people recognize your value through association, the more they feel compelled to notice and respect you. Scarcity becomes apparent when your presence is limited to those who earn it. And influence grows when your time and energy are clearly non-negotiable. You are no longer a passive participant in the social landscape. You are an active force, shaping perceptions, influencing behavior, and naturally drawing the people who matter toward you. When others see you surrounded by respect, by ambition, and by influence, they feel compelled to elevate their own perception of you. They sense the power in your network and they are drawn to it because it reflects your own strength. The psychology is undeniable. We are influenced by the people around us, and the higher their value, the higher we instinctively place the person at the center of that circle. You become someone others seek, someone they want to be near, someone they cannot afford to overlook. This is not about superficial popularity or empty connections. It is about building a presence so compelling that it radiates through the lives of those around you. Your network becomes a reflection of your standards, a mirror of the energy you cultivate, and a multiplier of your influence. Every interaction, every relationship, every alliance you form with intention reinforces your value, your magnetism, and your ability to command attention without asking for it. By consciously elevating your social environment, you are doing more than improving your external circumstances. You are signaling to the world that your presence is rare, that your energy is protected, and that your value is undeniable. And when you carry that energy, others are drawn to it naturally. They notice your influence, they respect your boundaries, and they begin to recognize that to be in your life is not a right. It is a privilege. Your network becomes the silent amplifier of your worth, and with it, the world begins to respond exactly as it should. Emotions are powerful, but mastery over them is what separates those who are pursued from those who are overlooked. People who can control their reactions, who do not give away their power through impulsive responses, exude a magnetic authority. When you refuse to be ruled by your feelings, when you stand firm in your calm, even in the face of provocation or drama, you communicate strength without words. Others may not understand how you do it, but they feel it. They sense that your energy is not for the taking, and that awareness makes you invaluable. Emotional control is not suppression, it is deliberate management. It is the ability to process, to pause, and to respond with precision. It is the difference between reacting in chaos and acting in command. When you master this, you stop giving others the leverage to manipulate or diminish you. You become the center of your own world, untouchable by unnecessary conflict, unaffected by attempts to provoke, and unwavering in your self-worth. That stability is magnetic. People are drawn to it because it is rare, and it signals a level of inner power that cannot be forced or faked. Every time you respond rather than react, every time you choose thoughtfulness over impulsivity, you are creating value that others cannot ignore. Human nature is wired to pursue what is unattainable, to work for what requires effort, to seek the approval of those who are not easily moved. When you maintain emotional control, you are signaling that you are not easily shaken, that your attention and energy are precious, and that being part of your life is not something to be assumed. That energy creates desire without demand. Imagine the shift in perception when people realize that their usual tactics no longer sway you. They cannot push buttons that once elicited desperation, guilt, or neediness. They feel the distance of your measured responses, the weight of your calm, and the strength of your self-possession. That realization changes how they engage with you. Suddenly, respect is automatic. Attention is earned. Desire is amplified. People chase not what you give freely, but what they sense they must work for: the approval, the presence, and the recognition of someone who commands their own world. Emotional control also allows you to create boundaries effortlessly. When you are not at the mercy of every provocation, you can protect your energy without guilt. You can disengage from those who deplete you and redirect your focus toward what and who truly deserve it. That clarity in turn raises your perceived value. People are drawn to the energy of someone who cannot be consumed by chaos, who maintains dignity under pressure, and who measures their responses with unshakable self-respect. This mastery is transformative because it rewires the way others interact with you. The chaotic energy of insecurity, neediness, or oversensitivity is replaced with calm authority. You become the standard by which others measure themselves. They begin to see you as rare, as someone whose presence cannot be assumed, as someone whose attention is a prize. That energy creates attraction, respect, and a silent pull that makes them want to earn the privilege of being part of your life. Control over your emotions is control over your influence. It is the quiet, invisible force that ensures you are no longer at the mercy of the whims of others. It is the foundation of a presence that is magnetic, respected, and ultimately irresistible. When you master this, you stop chasing validation, you stop begging for recognition, and you begin to radiate a value that others cannot ignore. They notice, they respect, they pursue. And that is the power of emotional mastery. Rarity is magnetic. The human mind is wired to chase what is scarce, to desire what is not easily obtained, and to value what is perceived as exceptional. When you cultivate yourself as a rare asset, someone who is selective with their time, intentional with their energy, and deliberate with their presence, you become impossible to ignore. People instinctively recognize scarcity, and scarcity drives attention, respect, and pursuit. When you decide to make yourself rare, you stop being a commodity and start being a prize. Being rare does not mean being distant without reason or cold without purpose. It means creating standards that cannot be negotiated, boundaries that are respected, and energy that is preserved for what truly matters. It means operating at a level that requires others to rise to meet you. Human nature is such that we are drawn to challenge, to effort, to those who require investment to gain. When you present yourself as rare, every interaction carries weight. Every word, every gesture, every moment of your attention becomes valuable because it is not guaranteed. This principle works because value is not intrinsic. It is assigned. People assign value based on what they must work for, what they cannot obtain easily, and what challenges them to earn it. When you are rare, you are no longer offering immediate access to yourself. You are no longer allowing your worth to be taken for granted. That intentionality makes people think twice before dismissing you. It makes them pause before taking your attention lightly, and it makes them recognize the privilege of being in your presence. Rarity also creates anticipation. When you do not reveal everything, when you do not give yourself entirely at once, when you require effort to reach, others are compelled to engage more deeply. The human brain is addicted to anticipation, to the pursuit of what is limited, to the achievement of what is not freely given. By operating as a rare individual, you create a natural magnetism. People are drawn to you not because you demand it, but because your presence has become something worth pursuing. This is a mindset, a lifestyle, and a strategy. It is reflected in the choices you make every day, who you allow into your life, how you allocate your energy, the standard of excellence you hold for yourself, and the patience you practice in revealing yourself. It is deliberate. It is intentional. It is the silent force that signals without words that you are not ordinary, not replaceable, and not available to those who cannot match your standard. That signal alone increases your value exponentially. When you embrace this, the world responds. The people who once assumed you were always available begin to realize they must earn your attention. The ones who dismissed your contributions begin to recognize their absence leaves a gap they cannot ignore. Your rarity forces them to pause, to adjust, to respect, and eventually to pursue. What you once gave freely is now a privilege that must be earned, And in that shift lies the transformation of how others perceive you. Rarity transforms not only how the world sees you, but how you see yourself. When you internalize your value and operate with selectivity, you stop chasing validation and start commanding it. You stop seeking permission and start demanding presence. You stop giving your energy to those who do not recognize it and start reserving it for those who honor it. And in this way, you become not just someone to notice, but someone they cannot afford to lose. The power of being rare is the power to make the world value you exactly as you deserve. Your words are powerful beyond measure, but only when they carry confidence, clarity, and authority. Communication is not just about speaking, it is about commanding presence, influencing perception, and asserting value without needing to justify it. The way you speak, the tone you use, the firmness behind your statements, they all signal strength. People respond to authority naturally. When you communicate with certainty, they listen. When you communicate with conviction, they respect. Your voice becomes a tool that shapes how the world perceives you. Confidence in speech is magnetic because it reflects inner certainty. When you know your worth, your words carry weight. They do not need embellishment. They do not need to be loud or flashy. The simple act of speaking with purpose, of stating your needs, your boundaries, and your intentions without apology creates a perception of power that cannot be ignored. Others sense when someone is secure in themselves, and that sense triggers respect, attention, and desire. The psychology behind influence is simple. We follow those who seem capable, composed, and self-assured. When your communication reflects those qualities, people are drawn to you instinctively. They do not need to hear about your achievements or your potential. They feel the authority in your presence. They notice the consistency between your words and your energy, and that alignment signals that you are not someone to be underestimated. It signals that your value is real, measurable, and non-negotiable. Clarity in communication is equally important. Ambiguity weakens influence. When your words are precise, when your intentions are clear, and when your boundaries are articulated without hesitation, you eliminate doubt in others' minds. They cannot misinterpret your value because you make it unmistakable. Clear, confident communication creates respect before any relationship, any negotiation, or any connection even begins. It establishes your standard, and people adjust their behavior to meet it. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to reinforce your authority. Speaking with intention shows that your energy is reserved for what matters, that your attention is selective, and that your presence is significant. This subtle demonstration of power shifts dynamics naturally. Others begin to recognize that being in your presence is a privilege, not a given. They begin to anticipate your words, to weigh their own responses, and to measure themselves against the standard you have set. Charisma is amplified when your language mirrors your inner certainty. Simple words spoken with conviction carry more influence than a flood of explanations or empty flattery. People respect those who do not overcomplicate, who do not seek approval, who do not beg for understanding. They are drawn to strength that is evident without needing validation, and they instinctively gravitate toward the energy of someone who commands attention simply by being aligned with their own truth. Your voice becomes your signal, your statements become your leverage, and your presence becomes undeniable. Every time you communicate with authority, every time you speak with clarity and confidence, you reinforce your value in the eyes of others. You no longer wait for recognition, you command it. You no longer chase approval, you attract it. And in that mastery of language, you cultivate influence that is magnetic, respected, and impossible to ignore. The way you speak becomes a reflection of your worth, and the world responds exactly as it should, with respect, admiration, and desire. Purpose is magnetic. People are drawn to those who move with direction, who operate with clarity, and who pursue something larger than themselves. When you have a mission, a vision, or a goal that fuels your actions, it radiates outward, and others sense it instinctively. Purpose signals strength, focus, and value. It tells the world that you are not aimless, that your presence is meaningful, and that your energy is not to be taken lightly. When you align with your purpose, you command attention without asking for it. Living with purpose transforms how others perceive you because it gives context to every choice you make. Your actions are no longer random. They are deliberate, intentional, and guided by a higher standard. People notice when someone operates with direction and conviction. They feel the pull of that energy, the gravity of your presence, and the sense that being part of your journey is an opportunity, not a right. Purpose becomes a silent magnet that draws respect, admiration, and attention naturally. Those who operate without purpose are often overlooked, undervalued, or dismissed. Their energy is scattered, their presence diluted, their influence weak. But when you live intentionally, you create a standard of existence that is hard to ignore. Every decision, every interaction, every pursuit signals that you are someone who matters, someone whose presence is significant, someone whose energy is to be respected. That perception is irresistible to those who recognize the value of being part of something meaningful. Purpose also fuels consistency, and consistency builds trust. When others see that you are unwavering in your mission, that your energy is not for the trivial or the fleeting, they begin to respect your boundaries naturally. They understand that your time is valuable, that your attention is selective, and that your presence cannot be assumed. That respect does not need to be demanded. It is drawn from the clarity and intensity of your vision. Every person is seeking someone who embodies strength, direction, and significance. Purpose provides all three simultaneously. It amplifies every other element of value you have cultivated: your rarity, your boundaries, your inner power, your emotional mastery, and your communication. It connects the dots in a way that makes your presence undeniable. People feel the energy of someone moving toward a higher goal, and they instinctively want to align, support, and be part of that movement. Purpose transforms not only perception, but identity. When you are anchored in your mission, you stop seeking validation, approval, or attention from those who cannot appreciate it. You begin to radiate confidence, stability, and attraction because your focus is on something larger than yourself. That larger vision becomes the lens through which people evaluate your worth, and it elevates your value in ways that are undeniable and irreversible. To embody purpose is to create influence that cannot be bought, earned superficially, or ignored. It is the force that makes people lean in, that makes them recognize the privilege of being near you, that compels them to earn a place in your life rather than take it for granted. Purpose transforms presence into power, presence into authority, and presence into magnetism. When you operate with intention, the world responds with respect, desire, and attention, because the energy you carry is no longer just personal. It is compelling, contagious, and impossible to ignore. Transformation occurs when all the elements of your presence, power, and purpose converge into a singular force that cannot be ignored. Every choice you have made up to this point, the boundaries you enforce, the silence you maintain, the energy you cultivate, the standards you hold, the people you surround yourself with, the emotional control you master, the rarity you embody, the authority in your words, and the purpose you pursue, builds a momentum that the world cannot resist. It creates a presence that is magnetic, undeniable, and profoundly respected. At this point, you are no longer asking for recognition. You are no longer chasing validation. You are no longer attempting to prove your worth to those who fail to see it. Instead, you operate from a position of undeniable strength. Every interaction you engage in carries weight. Every space you enter commands attention. Every moment of your presence communicates a truth that cannot be argued with. You are valuable, you are rare, and you will not be overlooked. That is the transformation that turns admiration into pursuit and respect into desire. People respond to energy, not explanation. They are drawn to those who radiate certainty, strength, and self-respect. When you embody all that you have cultivated: discipline, boundaries, mystery, emotional mastery, social influence, rarity, confident communication, and purpose, you send an unspoken message that your presence is not to be taken lightly. That energy makes people lean in, take notice, and begin to compete, consciously or unconsciously, for a place in your life. They do not do this because you demand it. They do it because your value is evident, undeniable, and compelling. This transformation is also internal. You are no longer subject to the whims of external validation. You no longer allow the opinions, reactions, or approval of others to dictate your energy or your self-perception. Your confidence is rooted in action, in standards, and self-respect, and in alignment with your purpose. That internal authority radiates outward, creating a feedback loop where the world mirrors the value you refuse to compromise. You become not just someone noticed, but someone sought, someone admired, and ultimately someone indispensable. The power of this transformation lies in consistency. It is not fleeting charisma or superficial charm. It is the result of deliberate choices made daily. maintained with discipline and clarity. Each boundary upheld, each moment of silence, each decision aligned with your purpose, each interaction approached with intention compounds. Over time, these consistent actions construct an identity that others cannot ignore, cannot replicate, and cannot take for granted. You have become the standard by which others measure themselves. This is the apex of influence, presence, and value. When you fully embody this transformation, you command respect effortlessly, attract attention naturally, and cultivate desire without force. People are no longer indifferent to your presence. They feel the weight of your energy, the depth of your worth, and the gravity of your standards. They sense that to earn your attention, respect, or engagement is not a right, but a privilege. You have reached a point where you are no longer chasing life, you are orchestrating it. Every step, every choice, every action is deliberate, magnetic, and purposeful. The world responds accordingly. Those who once overlooked you now lean in. Those who once took you for granted now compete for your attention. And in that transformation, you realize the ultimate truth. Your value was never dependent on others recognizing it. It was always inherent. Now, the world simply mirrors what you have always known. They see it, they respect it, they chase it, they beg for it. Recognition is a reflection of the value you refuse to compromise. When you consistently operate from strength, clarity, and purpose, the world is forced to acknowledge what you have cultivated within yourself. You no longer need to plead for attention, validation, or respect because your presence carries it naturally. People begin to notice not just what you do, but who you are, and they respond instinctively. Your energy, your standards, and your self-respect broadcast a signal that cannot be ignored, and the world adjusts accordingly. When others realize that your attention, your time, and your presence are not automatic, they begin to invest effort. They begin to show up in ways that match the energy you bring. This is the principle of earned attention. People value what requires effort, what is not given freely, and what challenges them to rise. You have created scarcity without isolation, magnetism without desperation, and influence without force. That combination is irresistible. It is the force that turns casual observers into admirers, admiration into pursuit, and pursuit into reverence. Your transformation also reshapes relationships. People who once underestimated you now recognize that your worth is not flexible. They sense that the privilege of being in your life comes with the necessity to match your energy, respect your boundaries, and honor your presence. They are drawn to you because they perceive the strength you hold, the consistency you demonstrate, and the unwavering standard you maintain. They are compelled to elevate themselves to meet you, not because you demand it, but because your existence sets the standard naturally. The psychology behind this is undeniable. Human beings are hardwired to pursue what is rare, what is valued, and what challenges them to earn it. When you cultivate a life where your energy is intentional, your presence is selective, and your value is unwavering, you tap into a natural law of attraction. People begin to chase your attention, seek your recognition, and align with your standards simply because scarcity, authority, and consistency create desire. Your energy becomes a force that draws them towards you rather than pushing you to chase them. This level of recognition is also deeply personal. You no longer rely on external validation to define your worth. You understand that your value was never dependent on the perception of others. It was inherent, unshakable, and amplified through your actions and choices. That inner certainty radiates outward, creating a ripple effect that others cannot resist. The people around you, the opportunities that appear, and the attention you command all reflect the energy and standards you have set within yourself. Every decision, every boundary, every deliberate action reinforces this truth. People notice when you operate from integrity, discipline, and purpose. They respond to the energy of someone who refuses to settle for less than they deserve. Recognition is no longer something you hope for. It becomes inevitable. It flows naturally from the authority, presence, and value you embody. At this stage, the world sees you clearly. They respect your worth, desire your presence, and seek the privilege of earning your attention. You no longer negotiate your value or beg for acknowledgement. You are magnetic, rare, and unshakably powerful. And that is the ultimate reward, the recognition you have always deserved, now drawn to you effortlessly as a natural reflection of the transformation you chose to embrace.